from a Shell point of view, I think we were the first energy company to actually adopt a biodiversity standard, which means that all our activities have to be assessed with biodiversity in mind. And yet still, the issue is one which seems very, very fragmented. It's easier to define in a particular locality or in a particular matter, but as a field, it still seems wide open to interpretation and to be interpreted in different ways by different people. And so we believe that it was just very interesting to engage with practitioners in the field and understand more of the variety of perspectives. And I think that's also one of the interests from the point of view of biodiversity futures, which is one of the topics we've been discussing today, is to kind of look at that shadow of the future on current activities, recognizing that decisions are being made all the time which impact this field. And so a purely academic research approach isn't going to be helpful in that environment of decision making. So combining the if you like, the scientific technologies with the social technology, the understanding of how decisions get made, who makes decisions, is very important. It's becoming recognized that there are great stresses that are building up within a variety of systems which are interconnected: energy, water, food, any other environmental systems as well. And that's a difficult factor. When you say stresses, then that always sounds pessimistic. But of course it's being driven by some very positive developments around increasing prosperity in the world and people getting for the first time a decent standard of living. So even though there's a negative side to that, there's a lot of positive within there. But the stresses that are building up cross boundaries. The boundaries, public-private boundaries, industry sector boundaries that have evolved over the last 30 years have been evolving according to the pressures of the last 30 years. The pressures of the next 30 years are different qualitatively and also in magnitude. And so that demands a cross-boundary approach. And I think we're really, unfortunately, just in the foothills of getting a sense of what that will be and how different it will be in different contexts.
The trouble is we haven't got time to be in the foothills. We need to be on the summit already.
Well, yeah, that would fit with our scenario approach, where we introduced a couple of scenarios around energy, but around broader topics as well, a few years ago, called Scramble and Blueprints. And Blueprints was a better scenario in terms of its sustainable outcomes. And we look now at how the last several years have developed, and they haven't moved as fast as Blueprints. They've moved faster than the more negative scenario, Scramble, and things tend to move in the right direction, but the pace of development is one which doesn't meet the stresses that are building up. Well, Shell was probably the grandfather of using scenarios. So we've been using that kind of approach, along with others of course as well, but for 40 years. And of course it evolves over the time, because what you're really aiming to do is to try and understand the world now better through thinking about timescales that involve your investments in order to make wiser decisions now. And so it really is focused on taking people on a journey from a current level of appreciation of how the world is to one that helps them make wiser decisions, whether they're in a company or whether they're in a government. With the stresses that are building up that I've spoken about, the choices that are made will determine whether you have more damaging or benign outcomes. So effectively, the choices have a huge social value between getting the more benign outcomes. Whenever there's a social value, there is an opportunity as part of realizing that social value. You're investing in realizing that to generate commercial value from that. So this becomes a more natural part of our business. And if you are able to formulate things well, then these things come on the agenda. It's very hard at the moment to get something that is ill-defined on the agenda. But if you take areas that are more tangible, energy, water, food, then I've found there is no issue at all in beginning to build up an understanding of the issues there, and to get that on the, if you like, the top decision table, to really begin to think not only about how you mitigate against threats in the business, but also what kinds of opportunities you might be able to develop from those areas.